Hello, and welcome to a new episode of Leadership Trail Mix. I am Miguel Oliveira, and for the next few minutes, we'll be together looking at one of the main ingredients that compose this art and science we call people leadership. I am very excited to introduce you to our guest today. Margaret C. is a seasoned executive, academic leader, speaker, and instructor. She has created and teaches a variety of leadership courses and professional and executive programs at Harvard University and is the founder of the MYLO Center, a private leadership development firm. She is also the author of the book Manage Yourself to Lead Others. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Margaret, I'm thrilled to have you be part of Leadership Trail Mix. Welcome.
Thank you so much. It's very nice to be here.
Thank you. So, starting from the beginning, and I'm a big fan of definitions, I would love to hear your thoughts on the difference between leading and managing. Actually, the question is there a difference between leading and managing? And kind of a good way to play with the words here is, could your book be called Lead Yourself to Manage Others versus Manage Yourself to Lead Others?
Yes, and it could be lead yourself to lead others or manage yourself to manage others, right? It could be lots of different things. So in truth, I don't always think about the difference between leadership and management all that much for a couple of different reasons. You know, I tend to think of leadership is about getting individuals and groups of individuals, I'll say, from one place to another. That might be physically, mentally, emotionally, right? All different ways. And I oftentimes like to say it's to get them to a better place. And that better is an interesting word because your better may not be my better. And that's why we have differences as we see them play out all over the world.
Right.
But I tend to think of them more on a sliding scale, right? So sort of a continuum. I've heard people say something that I've never agreed with, but some people will say, oh, managers do things right and leaders do the right thing. And I think, well, that's just wrong, right? And that seems kind of denigrating to people that are called managers. But I've also heard people say you manage processes and you lead people. So there's so many things swirling out there. I tend to think of it, as I say, as a sliding scale, that when we're managing, it tends to, in general, and these are gross generalizations, it's a little bit more things are steady state. And leadership oftentimes involves change on some level. And again, these are gross generalizations. And, we're under constant change now. So we need more of that than ever before.
Yeah. I think I've heard in the past that change is the new normal. And I'm guessing people have been saying that for centuries now, right?
I think that's true. I think, every year everyone says, oh my goodness, things are so crazy. They're moving so fast. And it's true, and it's more true. Let's say.
It is. Margaret, switching gears a little bit, I would love to talk about the role of emotions, which you so beautifully cover in the book. So can you share your thoughts with us, the role of emotions in leadership?
Yeah. So I'll say that, first of all, I love a saying by Susan David, who wrote the book, Emotional Agility. And she says, emotions are data. And then she goes back later and says, emotions are data, not directives. And I think that is a lovely saying because what she's talking about is that, our emotions are there for a reason. They have what has kept us alive as a species over the span of history. And so what emotions are doing are telling us what to pay attention to. So fear, right? It used to be that you hear a rustling in the bushes. There could be something that's about to eat you. So you want to have fear kick in. We don't have many things wanting to eat us in the bushes anymore, but
Thank
we
God.
still, yes, thank goodness. But our bodies don't know that, right? So we still get that fear reaction for things that probably won't hurt us as much. But, they're there to tell us what to pay attention to move us in the right direction. And emotions very often drive our behaviors. And that's
Mm,
really where they come in any leadership position, whether it is parenting or leading a Boy Scout or Girl Scout troop or,
yep.
leading a team or an organization. So emotions are something that we uh, uh, some people say, negative emotions, and I try to stay away from that word because I think they're
Mm,
all there for a reason. They're
yep.
all there to help us, but some of them are more challenging. Let's say that.
That's right.
And a lot of times what happens is people don't want to feel that emotion. And I can understand who
Mm,
wants to feel
yep.
grief, who wants to feel
That's right.
frustration. But the thing is that I think it's helpful to remember is that the word emotion has the word motion in it. And
Mm,
that means it's a way to think about this. Emotions are meant to flow through us. That, if you think, we all know this is true, happiness is a fleeting emotion. We get
yeah.
happy about something and then, it goes away.
So true.
But we tend to not like some of the emotions, and so what we do is we try to, as I call them, stuff them down. Like if
Mm,
you say something that makes me angry, I don't want to feel that, so I might just stuff it down. But the problem is something they call in psychology. It's called emotional leakage, and that is
mm,
when your emotions are leaking out. So if you say something that makes me angry, I might say, yeah, of course, Miguel, of course we'll do that, right? So you can tell in my voice, like something is
yeah.
off there,
Oh,
right? And
yeah.
that's that emotional leakage. So people are picking up on what we're feeling, even though we may not be. So I would say the biggest thing about emotions is to understand them. Get used to what your emotions are, and to accept them even if you don't like them. Yes, I am feeling angry right now. Yes, I am feeling frustrated right now, because that sort of lets them flow through you, right? And
Yeah.
then you can sort of move on.
That's a great one. Thank you so much, Margaret. I love that. Um, Moving to the next question, I recently had Peter Sorgenfreit as a guest here on Leadership Trail Mix, and we unpacked a quote from him that I would love to hear your thoughts on. He says, and here I quote, "Startups don't burn you out because they are hard. They burn you out when you forget why you started." I personally don't think this misalignment tends to be the reason for burnout only in the startup world. I would love to hear if you agree. And how does that connect to the importance of values you highlight in the book when it comes to leadership?
Yeah, I love that quote actually, and I think it's very true. And I agree with you that it is not just startups. It's anything.
Right?
Really, it is anything. And I think that there are a lot of people. I have no idea what percentage of the population, but my guess is it's actually quite high, want to be part of something bigger than themselves, right?
Yeah,
You hear people say that all the time. I know I do. And
I do too.
so I think that's what people, if we don't really understand how we connect to the bigger piece, or what we're really trying to do. So we're not doing accounting or we're not doing marketing. We are part of a bigger plan. And it always, his quote just makes me think of an old story of when John F. Kennedy went to visit. He said very famously, "We're going to put a man on the moon and bring him home." And so he went to visit NASA as they were working on this. And he's going around as he's walking through. Everybody sees, he says, "And what do you do? What are you doing here?" And so, he's talking to engineers and programmers and all these different things. And he talks to this one guy, and the guy says, "Mr. President, we're going to put a man on the moon, or we're putting a man on the moon." And it turns out that the guy he was talking to was the janitor.
Mm,
And the janitor understood that he was part of this whole thing. And I just thought that was such a beautiful story
it is
because he
beautiful.
got it. He got it. And where did he get that? Maybe it came internally, but certainly, the people that are in leadership positions there, they harped on that mission all the time. They talked about the mission.
Yeah.
And so I agree with your previous guest.
Thank you, Margaret. And I have to comment that I love what you just said. Because what seems to me is that some people just seem to have the sensitivity to pick up on it, right? Just to kind of, so like, what is in it for me? Oh yeah, I am cleaning this place, but the final purpose is to put a man on the moon. While for others, I think we need to break it down and somehow spoon feed it to people, or at least try to sparkle that type of breakthrough or dots connection, if you will.
Yes, I think so. You're right. Some people kind of get that. Clearly, that man did. But it's so beautiful when you think about it. You think, well, gosh, what's my role? What am I doing? What are we doing together? But you're right. I think it is helpful for us to talk about it. I've worked in higher education for many years, and I will say one of the beautiful things about working in higher education is I say the mission is always in the room. That whenever you're having a discussion about what should we do, the mission is always in the room, and how is this going to impact students and that kind of thing. And I love that because it really helps connect you all the time to why you're there.
Yeah, I love that. Um, Now I have a quote from you, right? Of course. And you say that in the context of this specific type of leader, which I'll leave people curious about so that they can go and buy the book and read the book and learn from it. But you say, and here I quote, "I invite you to become that leader by bringing the full power of your intelligence, ambition, and hard work. What got you here? To develop the next level of you." This truly aligns with my beliefs and my personal purpose in life. But my question for you is, can someone do it alone? Brené Brown said in her last book that leaders are the only high-performing professionals that don't think a coach is a requirement for success. Would love to talk a little bit about that. Do you agree with Brené? Is this work that we can do by ourselves, or the feel-good effect that prevents us from sometimes seeing the bad and the ugly on us when you look in the mirror can play a role there to not allow us to truly become that leader?
Yes. Well, gosh, how long have you got, right? That's a huge question. But I do, in general, I do agree with Brene Brown. I think that the higher you go in any leadership level, the harder it is, and the fewer people you have that you can talk to about it. And you need to be able to every now and then just vent,
Yep.
and sometimes to say, wow, I really screwed up today, or to say, gosh, I tried this new behavior and I think it kind of worked. I wonder how I can keep that going. And these are all things a coach can help with. So,
That's right.
and I also realize that, not all organizations have coaches and not all people can afford it. But in general, yes, I agree. I think it's very helpful, but there are other ways that you can do it too, right? If you have a friend at work, tell them what you're working on, and they can tell you in meetings, yeah, you didn't do it that time, or, oh, that was good, right? That was good. So there's a little bit of accountability there, because that's what we need. And the other part is that depending on what it is, you may tell your team what you're working on. And I'll say one thing is that so I've heard so many people say, well, I don't want to tell them, they might think I'm weak, or that, I'm not perfect. And I say,
Yep.
well, actually, they already know that. And in fact, when you tell them whatever you're trying to work on, whether it's listening more or delegating more effectively, et cetera, they are so happy because they know that's an issue for you, and they are very happy to help. And besides that, you're role modeling for them.
Yep.
That, of course, we're not perfect, and nor is anybody. So we all
Yeah.
have to work at it.
I love it. And you're right. We could be here for the next 3.5 hours debating only on that specific question. But we're getting ready to say goodbye, but I do still have a last question for you. We always end our episodes here on Leadership Trail Mix with a call to action, something people can start doing today to become better people leaders for those they lead. And in this specific case, I think the question is, what is this one thing we can start doing today to become better managers of ourselves and consequently better leaders for others?
Yes, thank you. Well, I'm going to cheat a little bit and give you two.
Please do.
So the first one is really what I'm going to say, an understanding that turns into a mindset. And that is that we judge ourselves by our intentions. but other people judge us by our behaviors. And this is a big thing to understand because we may intend to be a great teammate or a great boss or leader, etc. That doesn't matter if we don't treat people a certain way, make them, part of the bigger picture and these kinds of things. So that's the first one. The second one is, as I say, get to know yourself. And that includes your backstory. How did you become the person that you are? The good things, the not so good things, right? They all make us. That's our portfolio that we have,
That's
and that's
right.
what makes us who we are. And then part of that is the emotional part, and I think that's the one that is hard. So we don't like some of those emotions, but they are kind of our friends too. Maybe friends we don't want to get together with that often, but they're still friends.
That's right. They are there for a reason. I love it. Margaret C. Andrews, thank you for sharing your knowledge with us today. For those listening to us, if you want to hear more about Margaret's work, you can find her on LinkedIn at Margaret C. Andrews. And if you want to go one step further, you can find her book, Manage Yourself to Lead Others, wherever books are sold. I strongly recommend it. I've learned a lot from it. For those listening to us, if you have any comments or questions about this episode or any other topic really, don't hesitate to reach out. Miguel at leadershiptrailmix.com. Thank you for listening. Take care and talk soon.